Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to Refresh. This is a time to connect, be inspired, learn something, and ultimately feel a bit better for this time spent together. And for those of you who keep coming back, I know that that's what's happening. Right, Trish? And Debbie Banks just showed up. This is actually what Generation W is all about. So next week is Thanksgiving. Can you believe it? I just wrote a blog with the help of Jamie and Stacy on how I look at Thanksgiving differently this year. I have like this new attitude, this new take on gratitude. I hope that you'll get to read it. But I am still rather like, oh my God, next week is Thanksgiving. Can you believe it? How did that happen? It's also hard to believe it's been 8 months of social distancing, mask wearing, and limited travel on a list of many, many more things, right? And can you believe that this is the 33rd, Amy, yes, 33rd refresh that we have hosted? I don't know about you, but I feel like time is flying by and yet it drips like molasses. I've spoken about this before. I'm in the space of believing and disbelief all at the same time. I have questions every day. I don't know. Am I making the most of this time? What am I learning? What are we learning? Do you ask yourself these questions? I don't know. I think there's a lot of power in questions. It's probably a blog for another time. But so much is being revealed in this time of COVID. What do we do with it? How do we take this incredibly difficult, challenging, revealing situation and mine the nuggets as we accept that there is no going back? There's only going forward, this new normal. And it will be manifested in so many ways. I asked, do I take the time to really think about that, or do I just let it happen to me? Believing that as we move forward with our lives represents new opportunities, which it will, we need to see our way to them. I feel like I need to be more proactive about it and believe that we will make it through, because we will. Because in the end, you just got to believe, right? Our guest today, Amy Morales, she's a believer, for no doubt about it. And Amy, so glad you can join us. She's been a committed educator and administrator and became interested in learning and what learning is through a gender lens. She became a master trainer at the Gurian Institute, which talks a lot about brain and neuroscience. And I know we have one of the experts in the country with us today, in Heidi Hanna, who's been with us many times. She'll share some of that learning with us today, in addition to her life pivot. And we love all of this, I know, because all of us are asking, no matter where we are, what's next? Amy's asked herself, what's next? And she's embracing a new challenge as a budding entrepreneur, as the founder of Sweets for the Soul. Welcome, Amy. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, it's been a long time in coming, right? We've talked about doing this for a long time. And one day you called me up, or you sent me a note and said, hey, I'm doing all these things. Can we talk about them? I said, sure, let's all talk about them. Right? Yes. So tell us a little bit about your journey in education, right? Amy, you started, and I can't help but feel that this is connected, but you went to college at an all-girls college, the oldest one in the United States. We know that there's a challenge now on these institutions, but you're still involved. How did that impact your thinking as you looked at education and learning?
It impacted a lot of things that I started looking at. I started as a second and third grade teacher. Got my master's degree in administration, and along my journey, really, I'm a lover of curriculum and what makes that spark turn on inside kids' heads, and what really connects the knowledge that you're trying to impart. And so along my journey, I had the privilege of becoming the curriculum coordinator for the Episcopal Diocese, and became very interested in gender. And obviously that was a natural fit for me because of having attended Converse College and graduated with a degree in early childhood and elementary. And I knew the value behind a single gender experience. And so that really made it a natural bridge for me into the work in the neurosciences.
Great. That's awesome. So you go on to training. Oh, by the way, I just want to say, we always say hello to everyone, and Stacy will tell me as well. So somebody asked, what's the story of the monkey? Here's the monkey. And actually, Heidi, you can tell everybody, but it's a stress monkey. And when you put its heart pops out. And if you're feeling tense or stressed, you do this. And this is a gift of Heidi Hanna. And so
I have my brain stress ball with me today, Donna.
so this is from Heidi. So this is
I love it.
so that's why I'm sharing it. Yes, Trish, and Converse College is an all-girls college, right? All women's college.
All women.
Although about to accept its
we admitted men this fall. We voted to begin that in the fall of 2021. But the pandemic set things in motion, and we had an international school and a cohort of students that were not able to re-engage with us this fall. And so we decided to go ahead and open up and engage men who were interested, who are waiting until next fall. And so we have about 12 men who have joined us at Converse College this fall. And it's been most successful.
They're either very brave souls, very adventurous souls, or they're the smartest men on the planet.
They really love it. They're from what I understand, they're really, really happy. So
I bet you they are. So listen, we talked a little bit about brain science. We talked about the gender, and it's funny, I have this friend, Geraldine Laybourne, who has been on this show and always likes to talk about the difference between men and women's brains. But now it's been kind of controversial. There is a school of thought that says, really, brain science, neuroscience, and Heidi can weigh in here as well, is limited in difference. And there are people that think there are big differences. So you jumped in,
right.
And we talked about this the other day. So to share with us some of your learning on gender.
My learning in this is based in the developmental differences between male and female brain. Starting in utero, we all start out as a double X chromosome, and the Y is the differentiating chromosome for male babies. That happens at about 6 weeks in utero. And the work that I started was through Michael Gurian at the Gurian Institute. And so we look very carefully at what is happening biologically and neurologically to brain and body in utero. Testosterone being the architect of the male fetus. There is testosterone in women as well, but not nearly as much. And looking at how these hormones affect the development of the brain. And if you have been a school teacher like I have been, there is no doubt there is a difference between the behavior and the academic performance of boys and girls. They're equally as intelligent, they're equally as able, but there are differences in how the brain develops. The physical size of the brain is completely developed by the age of 10. We used to think that physical development meant complete cognitive development, and that is not this case at all. And the female brain develops at a much higher rate than the male brain. Complete development of the female brain happens between about 20 to 24, anywhere in that range. For men, it can be closer to 28 to 30 for complete cognitive functioning. And you and I were talking about this, Donna. I've got my brain in front of me, and I like to hold this up and let people know that the brain develops from the very bottom.
Hold on a second here. I am holding hold your brain. I am holding my monkey and you are holding your brain. Okay,
Yep.
just wanted okay, go ahead.
So the brain stem is the very primitive first parts of the brain to develop, and it continues through the cerebrum and into the prefrontal cortex, which is the last part of the brain to develop. And this has to do with executive functioning, forethought, all of those things that come into play in school. And really understanding this is making a difference in how we're looking at teenagers now. And understanding that this development is a different path for boys and girls and men and women. And looking at what this means when we are teaching kids.
Right. That's okay. So that's great. So I have to just say, I do tell everyone, I'm the mother of sons. And so I live in a house of men who are beautiful and wonderful. But I like to remind everybody that one time in their life, everybody was a woman.
Exactly.
Right? And they're like, no, this is a good thing. This is not a bad thing. Now, It's interesting. There's been a lot of talk about brain development and the interest in the kinds of decisions, responsibilities I mean, there's the socialization piece, which we can talk about,
Right.
but that would ask kids to make. Like, you know, we have young men, young women in the military at 18 years old, and we realize that their ability to make decisions that they're being asked to make, that part of their brain is not fully developed.
It's
When I
not fully
heard that,
developed.
I just think that made me concerned. Although we do, there, you know, there's excessive amounts of training, so that perhaps you don't even have to think; you just react.
Right. Well, I think that you need to understand what is happening. The analogy that I always use, it's like taking a pie out of the oven before it's totally cooked through. I mean, if you're supposed to cook it for 45 minutes and you take it out at 30, it's not done and it's not ready to eat. And in the brain, we talk about myelination of the neurons and the brain cells, which is a coating around the cell, which has to do with the messaging that happens in the brain. I like to use my fingers as you can really think about your hand all the way down to your elbow as a brain cell, and the nucleus and the cell in the middle, the dendrites are on the end, and these connections between the neurons are the dendrites talking to each other, and these signals between the dendrites travel at about 268 miles an hour. And so for this
There's
functioning
not 268 miles in between my ears, right?
in between your ears, every thought that you're having. And so when we're talking about, you know, is the functioning working well because everything has developed like it should, or are we still waiting for some things to connect and happen? If that is
Right.
helpful.
Understanding. Yeah, I guess it's helpful. I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask some of these people who have just signed on. Hey, Stacy, where'd you go? Stacy, there you go. Hey, Carla, nice to see you. And Mary Lee, welcome back. And Erin from the West Coast, and my sister Jill Hockett. Hey, Jilly, how are you? You mentioned stress. It's different, not better. And the goal is to learn how to better communicate and understand. Is that when you mentioned stress, what you were talking about?
Well, when we mention stress, when we talk about stress in terms of learning, there is a chemical in our body called cortisol, and cortisol becomes elevated in our bodies when we are stressed. And so in classrooms, especially, we don't want kids being stressed. We want to really reduce and everybody needs to, I mean, stress is a part of everyone's life, but in terms of learning things, what do we need to set up in classrooms for children to be successful? And so if we were talking about generally what's happening, if I had to say to you, what is the difference between what's happening in male and female brain? In the female brain, there are verbal centers on both the left and the right-hand side of the brain. In the male brain, only verbal centers are found on the left. And this is why it is so difficult for men to recover from stroke, because you're trying to get those two hemispheres to speak to each other. And with the verbals only on the left, they're at a distinct disadvantage to females. And this is why we find that by the age of 3, most females have complete command of language. You can pretty much understand what a 3-year-old girl is trying to tell you. May not be the case with a 3-year-old boy. But for boys and men, there is a larger portion of their brain devoted to visual spatials, which have to do with map reading, abstract math. And these things, these are the strengths and weaknesses that we know are in the structures of the brain. It has nothing to do with how I feel about whether I prefer boys or girls in my classroom. It has to do with what's happening structurally. And so what's so fascinating about the work that Michael Gurian did was saying, okay, if we know that these are the strengths and weaknesses, what do we need to do to bridge that gap in strategies that we're using in classrooms to help boys and girls be equally successful in all the things we're asking them to learn?
Right. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because we want to be able to do that, right? I have little people in my life. I have little boys. I've always been surrounded by lots of little boys. And obviously I do a lot of work with girls.
Right.
But I do really question a lot and observe the cultural expectations that we all live out without even realizing it.
Right.
Every single day, and how much of a factor that is in gender-related behaviors and expectations.
Right. Well, and what I just so love is I challenge anyone to walk into any preschool, kindergarten classroom and just watch the play patterns of boys and girls. Boys there'll be this parallel play between boys, not a lot of conversation. Girls are sitting down and they're talking to each other. And so I agree with you, these expectations we have and in school, and this is my own theory in looking at this work from the transition from school to work. We expect kids to sit down and attend in school, and we expect them to listen to things that teachers are saying. Teachers are judged they're evaluated as to whether their classroom is in control. And so, you know, the work of the Gurrian Institute really was founded on the fact that we have the highest rate of children that are medicated in the Western civilized world.
What's up with that? Why?
What's up with that is that we don't understand what's happening in this brain. And if you can really look at what's happening in the brain and the blood flow of the brain, we know that the blood does not flow in the brain after you sit for about 15 or 20 minutes. Kids are asked to sit for a lot longer in school than 15 or 20 minutes. And so what is so revolutionary about the work that we do at the Gurrian Institute is that we ask teachers to get kids up and moving. And just getting kids up and moving, and it takes between 30 seconds and a minute to do something we call the brain break. And when you get kids up and moving and get that blood flowing again, learning becomes re-engaged and much more focused, and they're much more willing to do what their teachers are asking them to do. But I have always said that school is really set up for girls. Girls can sit for longer periods of time without the blood kind of settling at the base of the brain. Much harder task for boys. And school rewards.
Wait.
Okay.
But even though girls can do it for whatever reasons, and I want to circle over, should we be doing that? Just because they can?
No, we shouldn't be. We should not be doing it. We absolutely should not be doing it. And so this is what is so wonderful about the work that we do at the Gurrian Institute is that we have schools that are changing the ways that they're teaching. They are using brain breaks, they're using the strategies, and everything that we teach at the Gurrian Institute is a strategy. It's not a curriculum. It is a set of strategies that you can apply to any curriculum to make it more effective. And if you will do those things, we close gender gaps in learning. We decrease acting out and misbehavior, and standardized test scores improve. Time and time again, we have this notated in many studies across the board, that these are the things that happen when you understand what's going on. And I think it's also important for us to talk about the fact that 98% of the schools in this country are co-ed. And you do not have to have single gender classrooms in order for these things to be effective. It's critical for both for men and women who are teaching to understand what is going on in male and female brain to be effective in the classroom.
Oh, I think that's probably true. And you know what? This idea of getting up is very important. So adults need to do it too, right? We need to
Let's get up and do one.
I'll tell you what, yesterday, by the end of the day, I don't know about all of you, but like I had Zoom legs and butt.
And like, put your arms up like this.
I think we should be doing
anything that you can do that's a cross lateral. Left arm, right arm to the left arm to the right, touching your toes. I feel better just having stood up right now.
There you go.
I don't know about you.
Okay. So here, let me just say this. Of course, Heidi says, God bless our teachers who are working harder than ever right now. Right? So it's kind of like dance around your Zoom screen and then come back and let's see where we can go. It's also a tragedy in this country that we're doing away with physical education.
Oh, it's a tragedy that we're doing away with physical education.
Because I mean, what you just said, the physicality of movement has such a great and direct impact on the efficacy of our brain work, right?
And that we also cut the arts, because arts programming is so critical for whole brain development, and children that have full access to arts and PE, again, have better standardized test scores than those that are restricted only to reading, writing, and math. You need these things, are critically important for the brain to develop.
So we have Joy Kurtz, who joins us. She is a beloved member of this community. She's also a principal of a school.
Okay.
And she said the problem is we don't match what is age brain appropriate with kids, how they learn and should learn with what people want to see as an engaged classroom.
I totally agree. I
So
totally
tell me a
agree.
little bit more what that means. I mean, you're a
To,
teacher.
to me, that means that we're not doing what is developmentally appropriate for children at the age and stage that their brains are developing. We look a lot at one of my trainings. I had a participant come up and say to me, "Have you ever had any work with someone who is a developmental ophthalmologist?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, I am working with one now, and we are finding that our children are really not ready for full reading and writing in kindergarten. You know, we've been pushing these standards further and further down to match, I think, what we need culturally. You know, we've got everybody's working, and we need different kinds of care for our kids, but that doesn't mean that we need to make school harder. And we've made school harder. We've increased the demands of what we expect children to do, especially to me, between kindergarten and first grade. And in the Netherlands, we know that we don't expect children to read and write until they're in the second or third grade. And so when you talk about, I totally agree with her that we are expecting children to do things that they are neurologically not ready for.
Right.
Those schools that understand that have much greater success.
Well, it's so interesting. Like Norway, right? They
Mhm.
age 7, they have play.
They
They
have
have
play.
play curriculum
They
until
play.
7.
And,
And they
and
say
the
play
work
as if it's something that is tangential, but play is one of the greatest ways.
play is so critical, and play is critical for adults too. I mean, all work and no play makes Amy a very boring girl. And I think this is following our kids all the way up through the college admissions process. I think that we engage in something that I call the finished product syndrome, which is by the time our kids are applying to the colleges of their choice, we're expecting near perfection from them. We're expecting grade point averages that you and I never had to navigate or were expected to achieve. And really a full range of experiences that I don't think are appropriate whatsoever in terms of what we should be looking at a 17 or 18-year-old young man or young woman who is looking to enter college. They're still learning. And I think we just need, I wish we would kind of reevaluate what those standards need to be.
And we do. I mean, Leah Jewell has been on, who's such a great, brilliant expert on the future of work, has talked about being lifelong learners. And we're hearing that more and more and more from lots and lots and lots of people. And it has to do with how our health system works to allow us to live longer, right?
Right.
He
Right.
told us that our kids will be 100, live to be 150. You go to high school, you're done at 18, you go to college, you're done at 20. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? And understanding that at 23, perhaps 50% could be more of the jobs that you would have haven't even been invented yet.
Haven't even been invented yet. And
So
I
this
challenge.
idea of loving to learn, whether it's male learning or female learning, is probably, I feel, this is my bias, just so everyone know, I think teaching loving to learn is the most valuable thing we can teach anybody.
I think it's the most valuable thing that you can do. And this is what I always loved about teaching, or my opinion is those teachers who are the best at teaching are committed to constant self-improvement. And if you are not willing to improve every year, if you're using the same test for a novel that you read 5 years ago and you haven't changed that whatsoever, you're not really paying attention to what 21st century application needs to be, and how are you responsive to the needs of your students, because what you were doing 5 years ago certainly has not much application for what's happening now. And so I totally think that teachers need to commit themselves to understanding what the needs of their students are and how they're learning. They're learning in a very, very different way now.
Right. That's exactly right. Now it's really interesting. I've been invited to a Future of Learning session on Friday. I happen to sit on a public education foundation board. And I think about this stuff a lot, right? Because we all get routed into ways of thinking. Systems are built around this. And I didn't realize today we were going to just change everything, Amy, but so be it. Mary Lee wants to know your thoughts on parents who are trying to raise gender neutral kids. what is that learning path like? I think that's a great question.
It's a really great question. I think that that learning path can be just about anything that makes you comfortable as the parent and works for you and your child. There are people that have very definite ideas about stereotyping children and what culture expects of them and what you think works for your family. I think that you need to let it play out and see what happens. There are a lot of people that are, they try it and they find that their behaviors, the girls tend to still want to play with dolls and do things that they might see their mothers or other females in their lives doing, and boys will continue to. Boys are real risk takers, and again, we look at the role of testosterone and risk taking, and there is higher risk taking in males than there is in females, generally speaking. But I think, what works for you and your family, I am totally in favor of.
But Amy, I'm going to come back to that. I think so much of it also is socialization. Listen,
I do
I'm a sporty girl. That's how, right? I played sports. There's little kids in my family, and it's so interesting to recognize our biases from the moment of birth, right? A
totally
little
agree.
baby boy, we do not hesitate to throw a football in the crib. We're not
Great.
throwing a football or even a basketball into a girl's crib unless it's a basketball house like ours, right?
Mhm.
But we are so ingrained in so many ways, right? We throw our little boys up in the air. We throw them off the bed. With girls, like, oh my gosh, no, maybe we shouldn't do that. There's no reason why we shouldn't do that, right? But we're
No,
taught,
there's
we're,
no reason we
it's
shouldn't.
just how it's, and that has a pervasive impact, I think. I wish my son Jacob's here. He's in Israel right now. We used to have these incredible conversations. But I'll just give you a little anecdote. We had a little baby girl, baby Helen, born into our life, and her mother was, as Mary Lee said, gender neutral. I mean,
Right.
she has 3 boys, but this is her first girl. And so, and she and I run to the store. We are so excited about baby Helen. We want to get her things, but we're like, oh my God, we can't buy her anything pink.
Right.
Right? We can't buy pink. And guess what? There wasn't anything that really wasn't pink. Even the socks had frills on them. So I went to the boys department and I bought some gray cute things and whatever. And finally, she looks at me and goes, can I buy her this pink and white striped sweater? I said, yes, of course you can do that. And it's funny over time
Mm-hmm.
how much pink has become part of her wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
And right? And she's still revealing her personality. We wouldn't limit her, but she's a rough and tumble girl because she's got 3 brothers. And so therefore throwing her around is not an issue. But
Right.
it was so interesting to us as a family about how we thought about this girl, how the boys now had to rethink how they talked about girls. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that gender thing comes early and fast and is very socialized.
It does. It comes early. It comes fast. It's socialized. I think we need to be really aware of this, and we talk about this all the time at the Green Institute. We are not stereotyping. We are generalizing, and we are looking at what is happening in the development of the brain. I tell audiences, I have absolutely no purpose in it is not a part of my work to talk about sexual orientation or lifestyle choices or what you are doing as a parent. I'm simply here to talk about the science and the development of the brain and to see where you think you fit in on the gender spectrum. I think that's the most fascinating thing that we do is that we talk about, what do these things look like for men and women, and where do you find yourself? And I think that's extremely empowering to say, not every girl is one way, not every boy is another way, but where do you find yourself in the work we're talking about? And I think that's extremely powerful and extremely freeing.
No, absolutely. It is empowering, right? And then having those around you being accepting of those decisions and how you choose to represent is probably the most important thing, right?
Right.
That is so critical. I would totally agree with you. Going back to our kids, Jill
Mhm.
says that less than 0.5% of kids in France are medicated for ADD,
Right.
ADHD. It
Mhm.
seems that medication here seems to be the easy way out due to societal pressure.
It is the easy way out due to societal pressure and what we're expecting kids to achieve and where we expect them to be. And I so wish we would just look at these things differently. There's an organization called Challenge Success, by Dr. Madeline Levine, and she is really challenging what these things look like and what does success mean. I think you have to determine that for yourself and for your family. What is success for your son and your daughter? That, and there's a lot of pressure from your friends when they say, well, what classes are your kids involved in and what are their extracurriculars? And I've got to tell you personally, I couldn't wait for our kids to graduate from high school, because I was so tired of these kind of cocktail party conversations or conversations you would have at meetings where, I really felt like a lot of my peers were finding their own self-worth through the accomplishments of their children. And I don't think we have any business doing that whatsoever.
And yet we do. And yet we do.
And yet,
Right? And yet we do.
And
Right?
so, to me, I think it's really important to say, what does success mean for you and your family and your child, and what makes you comfortable in that? Because, this is the age-old question in adulthood, which is, well, is it financial success? Is it creative success? What is it that means success to you? And if it's just money, I think at the end of the day, it's a very shallow existence. And so I think we need to be challenging ourselves and our kids and our schools, which is what does this need to look like? And I think that's where a lot of emphasis could be placed on shifting a little bit of those conversations.
I'm thinking of my colleague Stacy when I say this, because I think she epitomizes it. And I would say, but where's a class in compassion?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Where's a class in service? I will tell you that my kids went to school in 6th grade, and we were up in New York. I wanted them to come back here for this 6th grade with Edith Horowitz, because 6th grade was all about service. And every single week they went to a different organization in this community and gave back as, what were they, 11-year-olds, 12. And I just thought, to me, it was important for me to have them back here to experience that. But where is that in public school? I should make a note for that for this Friday feature, right?
Where is service and where is empathy? Because these are things that really have to be taught. And there is a lot of evidence that says children are not naturally empathetic, and that needs to be taught to them. And so I think, it's so important to understand that our actions do have consequences. Our kids are watching us, and they're watching more about the things that we do and the ways that we behave versus the directions that we give them. And I think we have a huge opportunity to impact them in ways that, we're not really thinking about in terms of what does our behavior look like?
Right. What does our behavior look like? Hey, by the way, welcome everyone to Refresh. If you've joined us, I am here with the wonderful Amy Morales. We're talking about learning through a gender lens. We're going to take a little pivot in a few minutes, but everyone's loving this conversation. Last week, by the way, we had Admiral Mary Jackson, 3-star, just retired from the Navy, who talked all about service in the most beautiful way, actually brought me to tears. Here's a question from my sorority sister, Jakimba Martin. Hey, I meant to say hello to you the other night. I wasn't sure you were on that Zoom, but she's a school psychologist who works with children, trying to provide strategies and sources for teachers and parents. Where would you recommend accessing age-appropriate strategies for children that are brain-based in nature? In nature, I love that.
From the Gurian Institute, of course. I really would. I would suggest that you get on our website and take a look at the statistical data about the work that we do and the strategies that we provide. I am obviously trained through them and a trainer for them, but I think that they're doing really, really great work in understanding what kids need. And that's why we reiterate frequently that we are not a curriculum. We are a set of strategies that you apply to any curriculum to make that learning more effective. And we are looking at the whole child and what children need, not only in school, but outside of school. And this is what was so fascinating to me when I started our studies. We partner with Dr. Daniel Amen, who is a friend of public television, also a friend of the Gurian Institute, and we use his brain scans. And Dr. Amen is a big believer in the effect of food on our brains, and you are what you eat. Your brain is only about 2% of your body's total weight, but it consumes 20 to 30% of the calories that you eat. So what you eat is critically important to healthy brain development. And for me, being involved in higher ed at this point, I was not fully aware that we have a real problem with food for students. We may be able to provide students with a scholarship, but sometimes they're hungry.
Right,
And
right.
so, it's important. What you eat is important to your brain.
Yeah,
So,
I have a fantastic friend down in Daytona, Volusia County, and she has an organization called Food Brings Hope. And her
Mhm.
fundamental premise is if kids are hungry, you can't think. And so we have to make sure that they have foods in their belly that you are saying are, and there is brain food. Maybe we should have a nutritionist on, Sherry.
You probably should have a nutrition about
Have somebody to talk about the foods. And I love the matching of, there's the genomic types as well as what's good for your brain and all of that. And you know what? That's also a really good transition to probably my favorite food, which speaks to a big pivot in your life, Amy, which is, I don't know if this came from your work with brains or whether it was accessing a different part of your brain, but what made you decide all of a sudden to start a business?
I had some shifts in my career and additional responsibilities with aging parents that now live in Jacksonville, and some demands on my time. Our daughter was in a car accident about 3 years ago, sustained a concussion, and I'm so thankful that I knew what that meant. And so I had to just kind of shift how I was doing things. And I really felt like a lot of things in my life were kind of spinning out of control. I had
Oh, hold on. Let's take a moment on that. I think all of us have experienced that. Okay.
right.
And usually when this happens now, I'm all about like, just take a moment, something we're grateful for in that spin. Okay, go ahead.
And so I had been making a chocolate sauce for friends during the last economic downturn when the Great Recession hit. And again, this work, I say, has improved not only my professional life, but my life as a parent and my life as a spouse. And my husband and I were coming home from an event, and literally, I can just tell you, I can feel it right now just talking about it. We stopped at the corner of our house, and my husband looked at me and he said, "I've got 2 jobs, and we have 25 employees. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I've cut people from salaries to hourly, and we're going to need to make some changes. And so we're going to give the kids less for Christmas this year. And if we give anything to friends, you're going to have to make it." And I said, "Okay, great." And so I started making chocolate sauce. And friends were telling me that they really liked it. And at about this time that the recession hit, I thought I was going to get my dream kitchen, and my dream kitchen had to go on hold. And so, we were very fortunate. We survived the recession and came out of it, and we're a thriving, healthy business today. But I've continued to make chocolate sauce and have always toyed with the idea of making it. And when I did get my kitchen renovation about 4 years ago, kind of changed the process. And I have a very good friend, Dr. Annie Egan, who is a pediatrician here in Jacksonville. And I dropped the sauce off at her house, and she called me and she goes, "I don't know what you're doing to that sauce, but it's a whole lot better than it used to be." And so when things were just a little crazy,
There's the chocolate
there's
sauce.
the chocolate sauce.
Wait a second. Amy's amazing chocolate sauce. Okay.
And so I thought initially, Donna, that I could make this chocolate sauce right here from my own little kitchen that I'm sitting in today. And it has dairy in it. And so I soon found that if it has dairy in it and a pH level that is, I can't tell you what the pH level needs to be, but I had it tested and was told by the Department of Agriculture, you can't make it in your kitchen. You don't qualify as a cottage food. You're going to need to get a food permit and become licensed and insured to sell this chocolate sauce. And as long as you produce it in a commercial facility, commissary kitchen, you can go ahead and make all the chocolate sauce that you want, but it cannot be a cottage food endeavor. And so I decided that I would figure out what that meant. And I started on this journey probably about 18 months ago. And in February, of 2020, this crazy year, I became licensed and insured to sell Amy's Amazing Chocolate Sauce. And so I do that now. I work at the Jack's Kitchen, Commissary Kitchen in Jacksonville. And I am producing and selling chocolate sauce. And I absolutely love it. Part of this was, influenced by, my career journey, but also in the value that I know comes from creative endeavors and doing things that are artistic. And this is mine from top to bottom. It belongs to me. And as far as I'm concerned, its success or its failure is dependent on how hard I'm working to work.
Amy, I just got to ask you whether you chose chocolate because you understand the incredibly intimate and valuable and important connection between women and our chocolate, right?
Exactly. And
Nothing's going to get between us and our chocolate or our wine.
Exactly. And so my husband loves to say that it's a good thing that I'm probably doing this because I've tried to give up chocolate for Lent on several occasions and been very, very unsuccessful in that endeavor. And so, and I really find it, I decided to call my company Sweets for the Soul because even in my own career transitions, I was also just taking time to kind of journal and be reflective and think about what was going on in the world. And even before the pandemic, I felt like I was just living in a world where people were just not very kind to each other. And so I hope that people will try my chocolate sauce, taste it, say they love it, and be a little bit kinder and sweeter.
I think it should be part of the compassion class at school,
Yeah.
right? Chocolate, like Lisa Morrow said, these are similar reasons I started my business too. Interesting how many women start their businesses when they feel pressed between their career and family responsibilities.
Right.
I think that's, and she says, and it's timely. She's thinking about starting a food-based nonprofit. She lives in Colorado. So I am taking the liberty. Amy, meet Lisa. Lisa, meet Amy. I am sure Amy would be happy to answer some of your questions, Lisa, if that's what you want to do, because that's what we do here, right? Let's see. It's cute that you make chocolate. We all like it, but you were just mentioning how important food and nutrition is.
Well, I don't live on it.
I mean, sugar and the brain. Oh my goodness. Okay, Jody's calling you out on this one.
Well, tell Jody that
you can. She's here.
Well, I make a product called a Little Dipper, and it's only 1.5 ounces, so it can't get you in too much trouble. It's a great way for you to try it and decide if you like it. And that was really born out of the great experience. My daughter is a very, very good cook, much better than I am. And she used to say to me, well, Mom, I think you'd probably rather read a book about the brain than cook dinner. I was like, you're exactly right about that. But as I was transitioning from working in my kitchen to the commissary kitchen, she made a comment that if I were ever able to move to a co-packager and not have to do this myself, that there really wouldn't be any waste. And so as I was filling my jars of, 12 and 8 ounces and finding that I would get to the end of the batch and had a little bit left over, I thought I just need something really small. And so there are some, really small little 1.5 ounce jars available from, I try to get all of my supplies locally because it's much more cost effective. And so I get my jars from Duval Container, and Duval Container has this precious little 1.5 ounce jar. And the Little Dipper is not only an effective way for me to not be, putting the sauce down the drain in terms of the little bit that's left over, but it's a great way to have a taste without getting yourself into too much trouble.
Okay, well, that's good. But you didn't tell us what the sugar content is, but that's okay. Hey, Ann Flipsy. Hey, Amy Ruth. Annie Myers. Loving seeing you. That's so great that you guys are here. And Jackie Thielen loves chocolate. Now, let me just ask you, I am a dark chocolate person versus a milk chocolate person.
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing, and Yoki, hey, Yoke, is there
it's pretty much, it's darker than it is milk. And people tell me that it's not too sweet. So,
okay. So that sounds great for me.
Yeah.
How before you leave, I'll ask you, but tell me, going out as an entrepreneur now, right? Mm-hmm. You talked about women not taking risks as much, and yet here you are, little Miss Risk Taker. What's up?
I just decided that I needed to try it. And Donna, it's not been easy. I mean, first of all, my husband is my business manager, and he is. Oh
my goodness! How is that working?
That's exactly it, Donna. That's exactly it. Okay. It hasn't been very pretty on some occasions, and at one point, after we had a little, discussion about how things were going to be done with taxes and income and expenses and that kind of thing, my daughter looked at me and she goes, I'm never getting married. Never, ever, ever am I getting married. And so, to do this, as I started out, there are just so many things that I had to do to become legal that were so difficult that I really wasn't willing to give up on the fact that, okay, once I'd gotten my food permit and license and insured and had a bank account, I was not going to stop. And for me, I talk about this, that asking questions and getting help is really important. I have a business coach at UNF. But I've also I'll ask anyone for help. And as I was having people in Jacksonville test the sauce and taste it and tell me what they think, was directed to an organization called the Women's Food Alliance. And the Women's Food Alliance, the president's name is Lee Kurtz, and her mother happens to live across the hall from my mother, where they are both in assisted living. And my mom was saying to me, well, how did your meeting go with the pastry chef from Orsay, Rebecca Reed, who is a member of the Women's Food Alliance. And Rebecca had said to me, you need to know Lee Kurtz. And so I said, my mom said, well, how did your meeting go with Rebecca? And I said, well, she told me I need to join the Women's Food Alliance. And my mom goes, well, you know who the president is? It's Helen's mother who lives across the hall. So I called Lee Kurtz, and she invited me to attend a meeting and welcomed me with open arms. And the Women's Food Alliance welcomed me as a product in process. I did not have to have, it's not like going on Shark Tank.
I think we're all that, Amy. I think we're all products in process, right? People are asking for some of your advice. We're just sharing that with them right as you look, right? Go ahead.
So that's how it happened. So this is my advice. Write down your goals and objectives. And then I will say, I did have a plan, Donna, for what I thought my life was going to look like when our children were basically grown and flown. And that didn't happen. And so I think it's really important to just recalibrate. And if things don't happen the way you think they're going to, and my gosh, we're all living through that right now, just recalibrate and figure out how you're going to get where you want to go. Ask questions of everyone. Ask for help. And also be willing to make mistakes. And that'll get you just
So now, Lisa Morrow, how long are you into this as a business?
I am officially 10 months into this.
So this is a true pandemic business. Wow.
This is a true pandemic business.
So Lisa wants to know, what is something you wish you knew when you first started as opposed to now? Is there something you said, I wish I would have known?
I wish I had known how physically demanding this was going to be, because I got to tell you, after the first day that I worked in the commissary kitchen, I rolled over in bed and my hands hurt and my feet hurt. I've got a little connective tissue disorder in my hands and feet. And I thought, what in the world was the girl with arthritis doing, starting a chocolate sauce company? And I thought to myself, I don't know if I like my small business, but I was not going to admit to my husband that maybe this was not all that I thought it was going to be. And again, I'm also a real believer in don't focus on the things that you can't do, focus on the things that you can. And so I knew that if I would just, take a little bit of medication and, attend to myself physically. And really, I would say that's probably my challenge right now as I'm scaling this, is how I take care of myself physically while also trying to grow this business. It's a challenge for me.
Right.
But I don't want that to determine whether I will or will not be successful, because there are a lot of people that have physical challenges that are much more greater than mine that are successful in entrepreneurship.
Right. It's exactly right. And what did you have to do about capital? People will probably want to know, you started a business. Did you need capital? Did you have enough to be able to start your product?
Well, I am keeping it very, very, we have not invested a lot of money into this endeavor. I would say that probably the total investment at this point from the very beginning, before I was keeping records, is about $20,000. But we have been able to self-finance it. And these are important questions that they will ask you when you get a business coach is, are you paying your bills with this? And how are you going to finance it? And so the woman who is my business coach, her name is Melinda Powers, and they matched me with her because she started a banana pudding business. And she said, I made the critical mistake of I ran out of money because I hadn't figured out how I was going to finance it. I was self-financing it. And I over advertised, and I got picked up by One Spark, and I had to make 1,000 pans of banana pudding. And I ended up hating it because I was overextended physically, and it was not a match for me financially. And so, as much as I hate these conversations that I have with my husband and putting things on the spreadsheet, it's very, very helpful, because if you're going to be in business, you need to know the difference between your income and your expenses. And so he makes me pay all of my own bills. He said to me, honey, you are on your own for this. He got me started. But now, I pay my own rent. I pay my own insurance. It's important for me to get my things locally because I don't have to pay shipping if I can get my jars at Duval Container. And it's a dance, Donna.
I know it's a dance
every day.
So a couple of months ago with some incredible women entrepreneurs that were in varying stages of rolling out their companies, and a lot of them talked about the things that you do. I don't know if I should write this down. You better know your income and your expenses. I mean, yes, hello, of course. We got to know that.
Honestly, my husband said to me, when you were doing this for Christmas gifts, you would just charge it to my credit card and I would pay for it. And you never had to really think, what is the cost of the ribbon and what is the cost of the box? And and by the way, at the end of the day, Amy, I don't know why you enjoy working for free, because I don't work for free. Why do you not pay yourself for your time and your effort? And I think this is something that, comes from being a teacher, because teachers, you're not going on a ski vacation to Vail on a teacher's salary. And teachers pay for a lot of things out of their own pockets. And so I was used to doing that. And so we're not, according to the school of Rick Morales Finance and Economics, we're not doing that here. And so it's really.
But I just want to say, in this time of Thanksgiving,
right.
I'm very focused on gratitude these days. The reminder that teachers do so often, even on the salaries that we pay them,
Mm-hmm.
and I say we because it's a taxpayer, comes out of the state. They go in their own pockets.
They do.
There's compassion, there's service.
Yep.
We should keep them in their minds and keep trying to figure out
because
how we can help our teachers.
They do. And I would say that's probably why this is a really tough thing for me, is that I am a giver. I love an author by the name of Bob Goff, who says that you should give love away freely. It doesn't cost anything. Give love away like you're made of it. And I do like to give my love away in the form of gifts. We have different love languages. Mine happens to be in gift giving. And so for me, my vision for this company is crystal clear in what I want the packaging to look like.
Right.
But it also has to make financial sense. But I do totally believe that in this season of Thanksgiving, we need to keep teachers in mind. And we need to love each other, Donna, right now. I really want us to love each other. If I achieve nothing else with this chocolate sauce other than people being kind and loving each other, I will be completely satisfied.
That's fantastic. Now we have to tell people, by the way, I should tell you, for a woman who's like trying to give up sugar and caffeine and being so healthy, chocolate is definitely my language of love, for sure. Can you tell us, how can people order your chocolate sauce?
They can just contact.
You have to sell too, Amy.
I do have to sell, and I don't have a website yet because I am in that scaling part, and I'm afraid to over advertise and not be able to fill orders, because we live in an Amazon age where you order it today and you want it tomorrow. But I am taking orders for the holidays. I'm able to keep up with what I have. And they can just contact you or contact me. I'm happy to.
Well, they won't know what to order, right? You had all those. Is it just you said a little one?
Can we show my pictures of my chocolate sauce again, and I'll tell you what they can order?
Of course we can. We are a service-oriented shop. That would be. There you go.
Right there on the screen, there is, on the far right is the 8-ounce jar, and that is $15. The 12-ounce jar is on the left, and that's $20. And then this little one in the middle is only for it's like customizing. I'm doing that for special events. It's 4 ounces. And I've realized that that's a tough jar to get, and it's not, it's very labor intensive to clean that jar and put that together. So that one, if you want that, I'm having great success, Donna, with special events, and that one in the very front is a 4 ounce jar for special events. But if you can scroll to the next one that has the little dippers on it, those are $5 each. And there's a little dipper. It's 1.5 ounces. I can customize, if you would like to customize the tag for special events, I charge a design fee to customize the tag. This is one for a couple that's getting married on Friday out at the TVC. And then these are the tags that I've been doing for holidays, or you can just get my generic tag that says a little dipper on it. And so
That's
for
so
as little as $5.
Wobble till you wobble. Happy Thanksgiving. I bet you we can, like, thousands are going to be sold right here, right now.
Yeah. So that's, and it's a great little, it's a great thing to put on your Thanksgiving table next to a place card. And it's just enough that you won't get in trouble.
There you go, Jody. Not enough to get in trouble, right? Just not to get in trouble. Wow, that is fantastic. All right, let me just, Jamie was great on our Zoom. She put up some of the stores that you were available at. We'll get that on Facebook.
Yeah, I am also available. There are a couple of stores locally, all women owned, that I happen to be represented.
Oh, okay, there's info on the chat on Facebook with locations and pricing
Perfect.
as well. All right, Amy, this has been amazing. It's been a lot of fun. I just want to say thank you. At this point in time, I always get this opportunity. As I told Amy, I take notes. This has been a conversation in 2 parts with Amy Morales. In the beginning, she says, we need to get kids up and moving. And we should remember that as active as we can make kids, it has a really great positive impact on their brain functioning. And I think that's good for adults as well, of course. Yep. Trish Maley, you called this one out. She loved, we should be focusing on what we can do and not what we can't do. And I love this whole thing about just giving love away because it's free. So thank you, Amy, for that. I want to share with everybody that next week we're going to have Dr. Carl Marcy. He's a physician, author, entrepreneur. He is a chief psychiatrist who works with on-demand health services called Ready, which just started offering mental health service in parts of the country. He'll talk about mental health issues. I know that's something that's near and dear to all of our hearts in this community during this extraordinary time. He says that more Americans than ever before are experiencing mental health issues. For kids, the issue is a major concern. What are the lingering implications and what can we do? Oh, I'm loving this. So Dr. Carl, we can't wait to meet and greet you next week. I want to thank everyone for joining us. You know that this is a moment of gratitude for me every week. That gets me through. I hope it does the same for you. I always want to say thank you to our entire team, Sherry and Jamie, our producers, and Stacy, of course, and Mariah and Ruth and Tara and Christina and Kasha. What a team that we have at Generation W. We'll see you again next week for another episode of Refresh, where our spirits get lifted. We learn a little together, and it's really fun to be connected. So bye, everyone.